My name is Lee Heinemann. I'm program director at A Blade of Grass. A Blade of Grass is an artist-run organization dedicated to nurturing socially engaged art. We support socially engaged artists working throughout the country and working in many disciplines that use socially engaged process. Field funds came to be early in A Blade of Grass's relaunch. With the COVID-19 pandemic, A Blade of Grass paused operations to look internally and restructure, emerging as an organization entirely governed and led by artists. Our board of directors are all practicing artists who are paid for their service, and they led a landscape study that brought socially engaged practitioners from across the country into conversation with A Blade of Grass about their needs and how their needs have changed since the organization's founding. One thing that we really learned from these research conversations is that there are practitioners working outside of urban hubs, practitioners who've never received support before, and really strengthened our understanding that $500 could be significant support to socially engaged artists kind of at every stage of their career. Field Funds is a bi-monthly open call $500 grant that is distributed quite quickly to socially engaged artists working throughout the country. We support the often unfunded aspects of socially engaged process that we've found to be common to many practitioners working in this field. So for field funds, all eligible applications have the same chance of being selected. With this, we've kind of let go of the opportunity to select, to handpick who grantees are. And through letting go of that control, we've really been surprised and excited by what has come out of the process. Field Funds is open to practitioners who identify as socially engaged artists, whether or not you claim that language. For us, that really has to do with the process by which the work is made and if it brings community partners or others into the process in meaningful ways. Again, this is a multidisciplinary field, so there are socially engaged musicians, writers, performers, visual artists, etc. And the product is really not what we are interested in when we're thinking about who is a socially engaged artist or not. Field Funds is designed to support those behind the scenes aspects of artist process that are often underfunded or not considered in other opportunities. So Field Funds is there to support folks to meet with community partners and have planning meetings and preliminary conversations. It's there to support accessibility and translation of materials, performances, making sure that the audiences that your work is for is able to access it. We also support artist collectives specifically, and our cycle is dedicated to collective work. And we found that artist collectives who are not incorporated as nonprofit organizations or don't have another entity are often excluded from other grant making processes. So for us, it's exciting to offer support to groups of artists working together to strengthen and support their collective work. And then we support artists in tending to and creating documentation and archiving of their practice. And for artists working in socially engaged forms, they're often durational and relational. This documentation is really where the work exists for a lot of people who don't make a discrete object. Field Funds selects grantees at random, so we, as a Blade of Grass, do not have control over who receives Field Fund support. We created the criteria and the guidelines for the type of practitioner we want to support and what is eligible, but beyond that, all eligible applications have the same chance of being selected. Our team also worked on Artist Relief, which was a major emergency relief fund for artists that was deployed during the early COVID pandemic. And that similarly was a process where artists were selected at random to receive emergency relief support. And so I think that experience showed us how scalable it was to have a process that was efficient for making choices quickly, getting funds out to people, and how important it was to have that flexibility so that when things change, or things happen, the structure is there to resource artists quite quickly. So I think that's what we've built with field funds, is something that is a simple mechanism that allows us to move money to folks who need it and can use it, with as few barriers and roadblocks as possible. At A Blade of Grass, we actively fundraise for field funds. So now that we have this mechanism to intake applications from artists, hopefully in a way that is accessible and not overwhelming for them, and a mechanism to very quickly make decisions about receiving funding and disperse funding within a few days of applications closing, we are really in a position to distribute funds quite quickly and quite flexibly. So when we raise more money, we can make more grants to artists, and we can scale field funds quite quickly. We are currently fundraising to continue the program. We have an annual campaign every year where we ask the general public to help us grow field funds. And Field Funds is supported by our Artist Circle, which is a group of practicing artists who donate to sustain field funds for other practitioners. So it's a way for artists to pay it forward by contributing one $500 grant that then is redistributed in full to a field funds recipient. To artists interested in applying to field funds, we understand that there are always more eligible and deserving artists than there are resources to distribute. So, my advice to folks interested in applying to field funds is that it is not about making a great application or demonstrating why your project is deserving of funding. All we ask is that you can kind of point us to how your project meets the eligibility criteria for each open call, and your application will really just be judged on whether or not you meet that eligibility criteria. So hopefully there's not a need to do a bunch of new writing. If you have existing information about your project, if you have an existing bio on your website, you are more than welcome to just link to what exists already. Again, we're just looking for kind of what's out there about your practice and how we can confirm that what you're proposing meets the criteria we've outlined. And once that is met, all those applications that meet that criteria have the same chance of being selected.